Hello, this is Yuri Velasquez here. We're going to be showing you how to use CSS to design a website. Everyone knows websites are now the biggest thing for companies and branding around. So knowing how to go ahead and edit and style an actual website is very important to know. We're going to be skipping over the HTML and we're just going to be focusing just straight on CSS. What we'll be learning today will be getting started with a local website and just using internal CSS, which means that the website itself will just be locally onto the computer. We won't be putting it on any server. We won't be putting it on anything like that. Just gonna be local to your computer, just so we can go ahead and start editing and start working with it. We're gonna be talking a little bit about the syntax, learning about how the formatting goes, learning about the words, and just learning about the right things to type in, plus a little bit of rules. Then we're just gonna go ahead and talk about how you can use backgrounds and change the colors on the actual website to make it pop off a little bit more, change the way the text looks, and then how to position HTML elements just using CSS. Alright, so getting started, we're just going to be looking at how we can start locally and how we're going to be using a text editor and a web browser to start editing our website. To start out, we will need to create a new folder. So we're going to go ahead and create a new folder on our desktop, and that's just going to be pulled up over here. And it's just called an untitled folder. For the purpose of this video, we're just going to call it learning website and go ahead and save that. Then what you want to do is you want to go ahead and grab a text editor, whether it be that Notepad or whether it be any real text editor. For example, for this purpose, we're using Sublime Text 2. We're going to go ahead and create a new page, and we're just going to go ahead and save this. So here it's going to ask me where to save. I'm going to go ahead and just call this style.css, and we're going to save that to our desktop, and that's learning website. So now that we've saved the CSS file on there, we're going to leave that on there. Let's create a brand new one, and we're going to go ahead and save this guy, and then we're just going to call it index.html. And then you see for itself here, we're saving on the learning website. So now we have those two files set up. We're going to have to go ahead and show you how to create that in the browser. So what you want to do is go ahead and open up a new web browser. So we're going to pull up Safari here, and that's already started. What you want to do is just drag your index.html file that we just created and drag it onto Safari itself. Now that's created the link to the actual folder, and that's what's going to pull the resources. Right now it's showing nothing because we don't have anything on the HTML file. Just for saving time purposes, we're just going to go ahead and grab an HTML template that we've used in the past and go ahead and paste that over. So we're going to go ahead and save this guy, go back to our Safari, and go ahead and reload. Now you see here, for example, we have our website loaded on with our content. The purpose of the video today would be to show you how to edit HTML using CSS. HTML is just going to be the backbone of a website, and then CSS will actually shape it to be what it is. So hopefully we're going to get started with that. All right, so getting started, it's really quick to note here on line 4 on the HTML file. This little line here will actually link the style sheet over to the HTML sheet. Obviously, we're linking over here a style sheet. The reference here will just be what is the name of the actual file. For example, ours is just called style.css. So all you want to just type in here is style.css onto there. Go ahead and save it. And now we're ready to start working on the CSS file. Now, any new changes we create on the CSS file will be over and start changing the HTML file we have here. So then it will just show up on our web browser here. So that's the first step to get everything integrated and everything going. All right, now that we got started with the local website, now using the CSS syntax, we'll look a little bit more about the outline and rules, things like classes and divs, and things about the different words to use on the actual web page. This will be a little bit basics. We'll go a little bit more in deeper with the actual editing now that we are getting started with editing the different sites of the website. As far as syntax goes and the main objectives for CSS and how it looks like, this would just be an example of CSS code on the style.css page we just created. Again, I just copied and pasted over from a previous CSS page I've used. This just to save a little bit of time here. The most important thing that you see on here is going to be the ID selector versus a class selector. This class selector here is one that will be used for multiple elements. So for example, if you have different sections of the website that you kind of want them to look the same or very identical, you can go ahead and just create that class. Name it, for example, bottom down here, which will just be the, the dot followed by an actual phrase, and then you can go ahead and save that class there. The ID selector is using the pound sign or the hashtag, and then followed by the same thing. Now, granted, the ID selector cannot be used with a number as the first character, but it would do the same thing in terms of the characteristics and how it shapes HTML. But that ID selected would only work with one unique element of the page, so that would only work on one specific part. Now, the other thing you see here is just sort of this slash dot asterisk and then asterisk dot slash. This is used as a comment on the CSS page. What this helps out when you're going to be collaborating with different people, or there's going to be other people looking at your code. That way you can say, hey, this is what I was thinking at the moment. This is what I want to comment on during this page. Just for the actual video itself, I just used it for highlighting the difference between the ID selector versus a class selector. One of the other different rules you want to sort of follow along from what I've seen in the past and what I've seen other web developers do is have the main tags, whether it be like body, H1, paragraph, things like that, on the very top and alphabetized. That way, if it's an important part of the website that's going to be shaping the whole thing, you want to start off at the top. That's how I go ahead and keep those organized up there. As far as the different classes or selectors down here, what I do is whatever comes first on the website, that way as you're scrolling down the page itself, you'd be able to see like, hey, this comes next and this comes next. The inside of them are, what you want to do is just keep them sort of alphabetized as well. Again, it just really goes back to keeping your code just clean inside the style sheet and having, and just in case people are going to be looking at your code or you're going to be collaborating with someone. So just for example, we're going to go ahead and just grab this guy here. We're going to go ahead and copy this over, shape that down, and then same thing here. This border bottom should not be here. And then that will just be going right underneath here. And that just sort of to keep your code a little bit more concise and organized. This is sort of the syntax you're going to be looking for. Most of the things, like I said, we'll go a little bit more in detail when we start looking at the different elements that we're going to be changing up. But this is sort of a little bit of rules you want to keep in mind when using CSS. That way you can just keep it all clean together in case you're going to be collaborating with anyone. Alright, now that we got that going, we're going to start using CSS to change the colors and backgrounds. The first thing we'll just determine what is being changed with the class selectors, and that way we can see what's being changed like that and how we're going to go use the CSS characteristics to change that. How to change the background, use that different function there, and then how to change the color of a border. That's just a quick way to show different colors you'd be able to change and how you'd be able to do that differently. So the first step on how to change the characteristics of the HTML is just kind of look at what class you're going to be using for and what different things are going on here. For example, we already have the HTML sort of laid out. That's what we're going to be using. The first thing that's coming up here is this class here called the content. Under the content, we have an H1 tag. That's heading, the first heading, which is going to be the biggest heading. A little bit more text, more a paragraph here with a link as well. So then what you want to do, first off, we're going to go ahead and select that. So for example, being content being one of them. So now we just want to go back and style CSS here. We're just going to be using regular class selectors, not ID selectors. Just a little bit easier to use, and I don't have any usage for just ID selectors. So we're just going to go ahead and do that. It's called content. Go ahead and open a bracket up. Now what I like about text editors, they sort of already simplify what you're going to be typing up. So you see how it already closed up my bracket. So we're just going to go ahead and bring that down. And then what you want to do here, we're just going to center it in the page. That's going to be using margin or on the website without having to do any other crazy things. The CSS will go ahead and take care of that. With that, we would need to go ahead and add a width. How long you want this page to be, for example. Again, since we kind of want to be responsive now that there's a lot of more mobile devices out there, we're going to be using a percentage instead of actual pixels. So we're going to go ahead and do that. We're going to go ahead and close that. And then we're going to be choosing the background color. So for background color, go ahead and do that. And then now here you can use a hex number. For those that don't know, a hex number is a number associated with a color. Just for the sake of this guy, we're just going to go ahead and choose the background color down to gray. That's gonna be giving it a different look. So again, just so you can see how quick changes go ahead and reload it. Now it's gonna be gray in the background. And that's just sort of how to go ahead and define what's being selected on there. Now we're gonna go ahead and mess around with the actual text on here. I personally like my text to be just in the center itself. So we want to do, again, what we saw here on our HTML is that this div class here has an h1, it has a heading 2, which will be welcome to my page, and then it has a paragraph tag. What we want to do is just want the color of the heading tag to be red. I like red, so we're going with red. And we're going to talk a little bit about borders themselves. We want every single h1 tag text that have to have a border bottom, and then we want that to be 2 pixels big, and we want that to be white. So with a lot of CSS tags and elements, different customizations to it in terms of sizing, in terms of color, in terms of solid or dashed. So for example, for here, just to show you, we can type in dashed, save that, go back into our page here, go ahead and reload it, and you can see how the line down here is now dashed. Personally, I don't like that, so we're just going to go back to solid, refresh that, come back here, and just see the change. So then now we're just going to go ahead and start editing the other text that we have on here. So again, we go back here, we have this h2 tag. So then we're just going to close this up, bring out h2, open bracket, and then we're just going to change that as well. We're going to leave the color to be just black. No border bottom on this one. And then what else do we have? We have a paragraph tag as well. So with this tag, we're just going to go ahead and start typing the p tag. Open this up. Just change the paragraph color to black. So I'm going to reload that, and then we can see everything together on there. We also have that's sort of all the tags we have on here. As far as text goes. So then what we want to do is now just sort of mess around with the actual text itself. So you can see you want the heading number 1 to be the biggest, and I kind of want to center these, so that's what we're going to be doing. So we can go back into H1 here, and what I want to do is now just change the font size. So we're going to go ahead and type in font size. And for this example, we're just going to be using 45 pixels. Save that on there. We're going to text align it, and that's going to be center. Now we're going to go to heading 2 as well. Font size on that guy, that one's going to be smaller since it is going to be sort of like the subheading. So that's going to be running at about 30 pixels. And then text align again, so we can put that under center. Then the paragraph tag, we're going to do that font size at about 25 pixels. And then again, same exact thing with the text align. And then just run it under center. So then we go ahead and save this guy. And then we're going to go over to our Safari page, and you can see how now the text itself on all of the headings has gone in the center, and it has changed up. It looks like previous models. Here's this difference. So let's go ahead and see HTML under previous modules. Looks like it's an H3 heading, so we just want to go ahead and add an H3 heading on here. Again, just sort of keep this organized. For the H3 heading, so then we're just going to do a color. We're going to do blue, for example, here. And then font size, I want that to be around just 26 pixels, a little bit bigger than the actual paragraph tag, but still be able to see that. And then we're going to go ahead and text align that to the left, where it is. That way, you can sort of separate it and then see the different modules instead of just going down through the middle. And that's how it changes. The last part, we'll just be messing around with the actual bottom and how do we align what's the rest on here. So then we just got to go back on here. We have the body tag that's already in here. The body tag obviously takes care of the whole body. So for the body tag, we're going to go ahead and add a background color here. I already selected one of the hex numbers. That's going to be number 111. That's a different shade of gray. That way everything will be a little bit closer. Go ahead and save that and reload that, and then we realize that the gray is already on here. The next thing will just be centering the rest of what's on here. So if you're going to go back to just the HTML tag, we have class bottom and class grid. And all we have to do is just the same thing. Go ahead and adjust those. And you just want to do just that bottom. Open the bracket up. That background color, we're just going to keep that at the actual gray here. Now that's not being changed whether we leave it or not, but I'm just showing here just to demonstrate what's going to be done. So with bottom, we do want to add a border, so we're just going to type in a border here. We want this guy to be 3 pixels big. Go ahead and do it in the white color, and that's going to be solid as well. We're going to add some padding, that way it looks a little bit bigger. Just adding 100 pixels here of padding. We don't want any border bottom, that way it looks seamless, so we're just going to do 0 pixels on the border bottom, and that way it sort of overrides the full border that's going to be happening. Same thing here, we're just going to be adding grid. So with the grid here, what's going on is we have these guys. If we go back to our HTML tag, that sort of comes down to the tables. Now we're not going to be really going in deep into tables, so I'm just going to go ahead and copy over the rules we had before on my previous file here, save those up, go ahead and reload it, and we're all set. You see how it added a border on the red side here, that way we can separate what's going on. The 3 galleries are going on here, the videos are there, and that's sort of what you're going to be able to see what we sort of changed up here to the actual website. And that's going to be your introduction to CSS. Now, this is very basic. I do suggest looking at other resources here, but this will just sort of give you an idea how CSS and HTML will intertwine with each other and how they work together to create a website. HTML, like I said, was just the backbone of a website, and then CSS will actually shape it to be how you want it to be on the web browser.